Hi guys, this is going to be a quick little video of basically my current setup at the minute. This is my very first graphics card I ever bought, and my setup's obviously in the title, so if you've got this as well, or if you've not got it and you're thinking about it. For what I've got, so the reason I chose this card, and probably reason you're doing it as well, Ryzen you're doing it as well, is basically it only takes up 30 watts of power. And I've got HP Pavilion, and it's only got 180 watt PSU, and that kind of left me, even though it had a slot for this, it left me with like obviously not a lot. Even though I think it could take up to 70 watts, but everyone on the internet seems to hate the idea of putting something quite powerful in this PC. Anyway, went with that, done it, awesome. It's completely upgraded my computer. I can watch 1080p, 60. I can watch 4K videos. I've since also put an SSD in it as well and put Windows on that, and it's made a big change. So anyway, don't do that. Where are we? Overclocking. Right, let's go back to the desktop. So we've got this basically Aorus engine or Gigabyte overclock settings. I initially tried the MSI Afterburner. I think it's exactly the same as this, if I'm perfectly honest. I tried recently a different overclock, and if I'm perfectly honest, I didn't actually notice any difference. So when I first used this out of the box, I didn't want to overclock it at all because it was actually pretty good. And on stuff like Dirt Rally at 1080p, and what else was I playing, like Battlefield 4, sort of the year 2017, 2016 and beyond, before games, it works fine. No problem there at all on 1080p, and you have to adjust some of the settings to sort of medium-low. Some settings on high, like textures, you can get away with pretty nicely. But as soon as I started being a bit more competitive, I thought, okay, let's try and actually see what I can get away with here. Now, I think the defaults, if I go to a new one, go to a new profile, what's the default values? So this is the default values, and I think that's actually one above. I think the actual stock clocks, it says to game on about 1518 and something like 600. Now, bearing in mind, right, I have no idea what this does. I mean, it's all to do with memory and core speed and how it utilizes what you've got depending on the processor. Unfortunately, this processor, if you've got it, my biggest recommendation is to upgrade the processor. I can't. This HP Pavilion, annoyingly, with this motherboard, we are locked in with this chip, so there's no firmware to upgrade it to a Ryzen. I'll have to buy a new computer, and of course that's what HP wants, which is annoying. So, but if you've got a separate motherboard, I think like the A320 or even the B450, that sort of style, I think you can upgrade to Ryzen and that anyway, and I'll just save your money and just go and do that. But if you're like me, you want to keep it with a budget and just literally buy one thing or two things. I bought some more RAM for this. 16 gigs, it's slow, 2133. But anyway, whatever. So I literally had it on that. It worked okay. It did pretty good. And then I started playing with the clocks. And I basically ended up with this very first one here. And this is what I use. And it has been incredibly stable now for, I don't know, 5 months, 4 months, 5 months, something like that. 4 months probably, about in basically sort of lockdown. This sort of bought it early on, just after lockdown started. It says it on the timeline right there. But basically, the only thing I've really changed here is I've put the target temp up by 2. Don't know if it really does any difference. I did a recently adjusted fan curve, and it does make a bit of difference, but to be honest, it's best on auto, and I don't hear this card. I don't hear the computer. It's silent, this computer. Especially since I've gone to SSD as well. The hard drive barely kicks in now, and you don't hear a thing. But the first thing I did is I came over here, I unlocked this by pressing that, and I put the power usage or the voltage all the way up. That seems to have improved things. I did that quite late into it. I managed to go over plus 1012 overclock, so plus basically a gigahertz or gigabyte of memory on the memory clock here. Seems to be fully stable, and I've gone with plus 100 on the core clock speed or GPU speed. And I'm not saying you can, this is what you should do, but this is what I do, and it might help you. So give it a whirl. But yeah, I've just done that, and it runs games fine. Now that I'm streaming, it's still very solid, but this setup is definitely showing its weak points. I've had to lower my games from 1080p to 720p, and the frame rate in most of them has been cut by at least 20 or 30 frames. So in Battlefield 4, I was getting about 110, 120. Worst point would probably be about 60. This is all the sort of competitive settings. That was online with 64 player game. And then something like what was another one? I was playing a dirt rally. I said I could get away with some high textures, high sort of view ratio, but I'd have to have like the trees and a few other details like grass and that all on low to get a solid non-dipping 60 frames a second. But it works good. Older games than that, I mean, it breezes on it. It's really capable of pulling off some really old gameplay. So I don't know. That's my settings. I think MSI Afterburner, as I say, is exactly the same. Give it a go. I put this power target as well up to 100. I think that's not stock. I think someone said in somewhere in here, don't make it so it does it on startup. Now I'm happy with this. I click this box and I put start with Windows, so it automatically applies this overclock automatically. And there have been quite a few updates recently, but yeah, it's all fairly straightforward. This is the software that came with this card, as I say. So if yours is an MSI, you go with that, and I think it's fairly similar. But I just thought I'd stick with the Gigabyte because fanboy, I guess. But no, thank you very much for watching this. I hope that helps you. Oh, one more tip that really helped me. I forgot about this. Go into your settings on Windows, because this helped me at least particularly on Apex and actually on Dirt, particularly now I'm streaming, to get the extra performance, and I assume this would give you extra performance. Type in graphics, if you can spell, type in graphics settings, and browse for the game you want to basically put in it. So I've got Apex on there, Project Cars, Fall Guys, and what you want to do is you go options and you want to click high performance. That seems to make a big difference in how these games run. I think I don't know why. I've got Windows in game mode as well. That seems to help as well. The Nvidia settings I've got are pretty much just stock. I recently, because I'm streaming now, I recently went from, the only thing I'll show you what I did. On this, I've had it on let the 3D application decide. And to be honest, that's looked really good. And it's been pretty solid performance. I'm not really getting anything better by using this setting, use my preference and putting on performance. I'm getting a few more frames than something like Apex. I'm yet to properly give it another go. But yeah, they're my settings. So if you've got the same setup as this, I'd actually strongly recommend doing what I'm doing at the minute and basically saving up to get a better CPU. This CPU is just not good enough. And if you've got a Ryzen than that, then I'd look at probably something a bit better than the 1030. But I don't know. It's all down to it. This is a low power machine. I'm very impressed with what it can do. It's got me into the whole computer tech. So anyway, I will leave it there. Thank you very much for watching, and please subscribe if you enjoyed this video. If you made it this far, I need more people like you, so bless you. Take care, have a good day. Bye.